Hey everyone, excited to see you again. I am pretty jazzed that we are on to chapter 12. And if you've gone through the whole series, this means that you are dedicated to making your life work, creating a life you love, and focused on how you can bring more into your life where you're taking more action steps towards the life you want and more action steps away from the life you don't want. So we're going to get right into chapter 12. Again, I'm going to read the chapter, we'll go through the worksheet, and then right into the integration audio. But I want to congratulate you for making it all the way through 12 chapters. And then after I get this recorded, I will be able to record more individualized, focused topics where we're just going to be doing mainly magnetic mind sessions, and especially for ones that you leave in the comment. So I will cue up my disclaimer and we will get started on chapter 12. Residue of Trauma, chapter 12. Release the false self, emerging authenticity. Quote, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that there was in me an invincible summer." Albert Camus. The foundation of authenticity is the alignment between one's actions, beliefs, values, and emotions. It involves being true to oneself and expressing one's thoughts and feelings without undue external influence or fear. The most important person to be authentic with is oneself. Being able to be vulnerable with oneself and accepting where you are at and who you want to be is a pivotal point in growth. When an individual stops chasing other people's dreams and focuses on their own, life becomes more interesting. I am not suggesting doing it all alone. I am suggesting to never lose sight of the heart's desires. To always have a part of life that is for oneself and no one else. For some it's a hobby, others a vacation, some it's a career, meditation, reading, exercise. It is the space where cultivating the self thrives and not hides. Some will say being in nature. Humans are a part of nature. It isn't so much being in it as a realizing our part of nature. I realize they mean being outside, away from the concrete and the noise, away from life's distractions. Yet humans are a part of nature. You don't have to lose a connection to that part. Authentic individuals have developed self-awareness, confidence, and resilience. They continue to learn new ways to navigate life's challenges while remaining consistent with their own inner identity. They can allow others to be themselves and they can maintain their sense of who they are in a constant changing environment of life. It all sounds wonderful until it is put into practice. Then things can get a little messy. Especially if an individual tries to change things too quickly. Sometimes things need to change quickly for success, and other times it is a slow burn that is best. My goal is to create a space for self-exploration that leads to a more graceful experience during the transformation process. What if life could be experienced as a group of expressive interactions and exchanges, not as a group of interruptions and rejections? What if life could be experienced as a group of expressive interactions and exchanges, not a group of interruptions and rejections? What does this mean? Don't fuss, I'm not there yet. I still experience life as a trail of interruptions. Interruptions of thoughts, emotions, tasks, etc. I love being in the flow. It's so amazing. Then it gets interrupted. The real or perceived ups and downs of life. Learned helplessness often fosters a heightened sensitivity to real or perceived external or internal judgments. So much so that they have a phrase for it, rejection sensitive dysphoria. is a condition that causes people to experience intense emotional pain when they feel rejected, criticized, or fail. In general, not accepted. Often, failure, rejection, and criticism are subjective experiences. One person's failure is another person's success. I have found individuals must consider the source from which the incoming information is coming from. Everyone or everything should be taken seriously. Manipulation is at an all-time high with social media, alternative facts, and the constant intake of too much negativity on the internet and in the news. Self-acceptance can be hard to develop when others' acceptance of an individual had strings attached. It's the strings that need to be cut to be free, to see life clearly. The strings of shame, guilt, and fear. Authenticity requires an intrinsic sense of worth. Having a strong sense of worth makes it easier to take risks and recover if things don't go as planned. Feeling an inherent sense of value creates a larger comfort zone to function within. Situations and people are not taken personally. Challenges are seen as an adventure and not something to overcome. Again, not every challenge has to be tackled. Pick them wisely. Authenticity can feel vulnerable, especially to an individual who is not supported while sharing their genuine thoughts, ideas, and emotions in the past. It can feel like learning a new language, a new way of being. Not everyone can find a safe person to share openly with. I think that is why many anonymous blogging sites are so popular and possibly damaging. I have read some awful advice random people give to other random people. Other blog sites are amazing at sharing needed insight and information. I offer no advice, only a plan of action that can be consistently put into practice to create a life you love. I do feel it's important to mention that there is such a thing as bots used on the internet to drive negative narratives. This is making it harder to know what is true anymore on the internet. I find it helpful to ask the question, who's benefiting from this? And why now? How does this make life better? Another interesting thing is the uncanny valley experience. This is a psychological phenomenon that describes the feeling of unease and revulsion or fear that is experienced when something seems almost human but isn't. An eerie sensation that happens with robots, AI-generated pictures, voices, and certain people. It is an intuitive sensation that something lacks a concrete center to its being. It lacks an alive core. It is a primordial defense reflex for protection. The ability to tell if something is alive or not is important for survival. Alive or not is important for survival. It is important not to ignore this reflex. The unsettling feeling one gets when interacting with a person who appears outwardly normal but lacks genuine emotional expression, empathy, or other human qualities should give an authentic person an uneasy feeling. The uncanny, the opposite of what is familiar, I think came from a Freudian concept. It is a concept that something can be familiar and alien at the same time. An incongruency in a situation, an event, or person, creating an attraction and repulsion at the same time. This is important because trauma shuts this reflex off and many other protective reflexes. I worked in hospice for a long time, and I could tell the moment the essence or the alive part left a body. Sometimes the heart would beat a while after, and more often the heart would stop, the energies would consolidate, and then leave the body. It is a primordial instinct we all have to be able to tell if something is alive or has an essence. AI generated voices, commercials, and pictures still give me a creepy feeling. It is everywhere now. For those who have not lost this primordial instinct, it is exhausting and feels a bit predatory in nature. When an individual's natural primordial alarms for danger are going off all the time, because they are in a dangerous situation, yet they cannot get out of the situation, to conserve energy, the body shuts them off. Bringing these reflexes back online can be intense for some, yet it is necessary so an individual stops walking into bad situations because they can't feel it coming. A friend and I were going to a party. The closer we got to the location, the heavier my chest felt, and a panic feeling started to feel my body. I expressed this to my friend, and they said, "Oh, that's dread. I feel it too." At the next red light, I did a U-turn and headed in the opposite direction, and the dread went away. I know we dodged a bullet that night. Another example, I was driving late at night on my way home from an out call, sleepy and just wanting to get home. Even though the road ahead looked clear, the closer I got to an overpass, the sicker I felt. I needed gas, so I didn't want to take a longer route. However, something came over me and I quickly exited off the interstate right before the overpass. Relief came over me. Made no sense. I sat in my car for a bit at the next sign, wondering, now what am I supposed to do? This exit leads nowhere to get gas. So I headed back onto the same interstate. As I looked back to make sure no traffic was coming as I merged onto the interstate, I got a glimpse of a stalled vehicle under the overpass. I might have slammed into it if I didn't exit when I did. Even in my sleepy state, my intuition could tell something was off. My goal is to strengthen this type of intuition for those who feel it has been lost or shut down. We are wired to heal. Our body is a big bag of sensory tools and feedback loops. As the old, outdated emotions and experiences get integrated, your body's big bag of sensory tools will streamline and you will be able to feel your way through life again. Intuition can be your best friend in the times we are living in. You can develop your own strong sense of knowing where you should be and what you should be doing and who you should be doing it with, no matter what's going on around you. That is my dream for you. I will wrap it up here. Thank you for taking the time to read this book and do the exercises to create a better life. I believe when everyone is tending their own emotional garden, the world will be a better place. As an individual comes into their authentic self, all that doesn't match will fall away and new possibilities arrive. Be brave, eat well, sleep well, and stay hydrated. This is the end of chapter 12. How was chapter 12 for you as we were kind of wrapping up this series? And again, we're going to go through the worksheet. The first question is, and you should have already been focusing in on how do I feel before I start the session? What was triggered for you while listening to the audio? And for some people, it'll be confusion, so you can focus on that sensation. Sometimes when we fall into a confused state when we're doing this kind of work, it is when the new self is coming in and the old self is going out, but you're not quite in either one of those. It'll feel like a state of confusion. I just thought that was important to mention. So our first question, why can't you be yourself? Do you get pushback from others? Do they say you're too much? Maybe when you're yourself, other people are too much. How are you rejected? This could be real or perceived rejection. Also, how do you reject yourself? Can you fully trust your intuition? And the next one, where do you feel not blank enough? Smart enough, good enough, worthy enough, any of the enoughness. And again, let that come into your active experience as we go into Chapter 12's integration audio. Hi, this is Gina, and we are so excited. We are now into Chapter 12. And of course, you could download your journal tracker, or you could use a blank piece of paper. We're going to follow the same format. Again, the disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional. I offer no advice. Anyone using any resources off of my website take full responsibility for their mental health choices and behaviors. And again, focus in on how are you feeling before the session. And after reading Chapter 12, what is the topic you would like to address? Bringing that to mind. And what are you doing that you feel is working for you? Those things you are doing right. You can jot those down. Acknowledging them brings them into your nervous system more permanently. It makes it easier for you to see them in your environment. Because it's always easier to make a list of the things we feel we're doing wrong than the things we feel we are doing right. And in relation to the topic you've selected, what are those things you want to create? What are those new emotions, those new feelings, those new experiences you would like to bring into your life? You can pause the audio to write those down. And as we move into the magnetic mind session, I ask permission to work with your superconsciousness. And of course, listening to the audio allows me permission. Closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, bringing your attention inside. And we move on to the first question. Why can't you be yourself? What are the stories you tell yourself? What are the beliefs? Maybe there's some beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm too much. People don't like me. As you bring that into the active experience, your conscious mind, superconsciousness, please treat all the beliefs, all the parts, predispositions, and all the associations to and with this belief that I can't be myself. Especially the phrase, I can't be myself or else. Treat that with a massive history change and everything after that. And again, focusing on just a question of why can't you be yourself? Who or what shuts you down, redirects you? Where have you learned it's not safe to be yourself? And superconsciousness gather those beliefs, those thoughts. And again, treat the story. Treat the story they've been telling themselves and they've been telling others. Treat that story from beginning to end. And then when appropriate, do a massive history change and everything after that. The superconsciousness replace this disempowering story with a positive, self-empowering story. And if we can't get to a positive state, a neutral story will do as well. But replace that with a self-empowering story. Self-empowering emotions, self-empowering memories, self-empowering behaviors and coping mechanisms. Again, and when appropriate, treat that with a massive history change and everything after that. And as we move on to the next question, how are you rejected? How do you feel when you're rejected? What emotions come up when you feel rejected? The superconsciousness, please treat those emotions. Please treat the body's sensation of recoil, of shrinking. Please treat that feeling of wanting to be invisible. Superconsciousness, please treat the feeling of I have a target on my back. Others seek me out to treat me poorly. You treat all of that with a massive history change and everything after that. But what are all the ways you feel rejected? Do you feel rejected because of the way you look? Because of the way you speak? Maybe it's the career field you're in. Maybe it's the friends you have. Maybe it's the family you came from. Maybe it's the culture you were raised in. And as you bring that into your active experience, again, superconsciousness treat all of that with a massive history change and everything after that. Reinforcing self-acceptance, reinforcing self-validation, and the ability to see themselves clearly. Reinforcing their natural gifts, their uniqueness, and treat all of that with a massive history change and everything after that. As we move on to the next question, can you fully trust your intuition? Intuition can be kind of a spooky thing for people. But our body is just a big bag of sensory apparatus. Its job is to help us feel and sense our way through life. Superconsciousness, please treat any conflicting emotions, feelings, and data input that has caused them to distrust their own intuition. Please treat all doubt, and please treat any evidence that proves they are not intuitive. And when appropriate, treat that with a massive history change and everything after that. And I just want to point out that everyone is empathic. Everybody. Everybody has the ability to read another's facial expressions. Everyone has the ability to kind of tap into how is somebody else feeling. And for those that are a little bit more sensitive, they can even tap into what other people are thinking. The superconsciousness, anywhere we have been taught, where we have intuitively picked up on something, but somebody has told us otherwise, we want you to treat that, to treat the experience, to treat the conflict, to treat the lack of knowing, the doubt of knowing, and treat that with a massive history change and everything after that. Because I remember as a kid, I had an uncle that I didn't like, and I remember saying something to one of the other adults at a family reunion where I'm like, they're kind of creepy or weird or they feel weird, and they're like, oh no, he's fine. But I knew at a gut level, like, they ain't something right about them, so I just stayed away from them. But as a kid, I was always like, it never made sense. I'm like, okay, no, I know this. Like, I have a knowing that that person is not safe for me, but yet everybody around is going, no, they're fine. It's like a form of crazy making. So super consciousness, anywhere where they have been in that place, where they had a knowing and everybody else could not point it out, support it, or see it, we ask you to take and treat that with a massive history change and everything after that. To realign them with their knowing, to realign them with their instincts, so that they don't feel shut down by others' input. Because everybody's allowed their own opinion. And continue breathing and noticing. And superconscious, take all of that and treat that again. Sifting through all of the inaccurate input from others so they have a solid knowing of their intuition, of their truth, of their own barometer. Take and treat that with a massive history change and everything after that. Clearing out the incongruency in the nervous system and the psyche and the neural networks to increase their intuition and their knowing, and to fully embrace that, reinforcing self-acceptance and discernment. Now we're going to go on to the next question. Where do you feel not blank enough? Where do you feel not good enough, fast enough, smart enough, thin enough, pretty enough? Whatever the enough is. Worthy enough. Bring that into your conscious experience. In superconsciousness, please treat all fragile parts. Again, adding and subtracting to the basic neural network of the neural system, of the auditory system, the visual system, the digestive system, and the breathing system. And again, focus on where you don't feel blank enough. Allowing it to come up in your active experience so superconsciousness can shift it for you. Again, superconsciousness, seeing all these stories, all these beliefs. Treat the story from beginning to end, whether it's their story or somebody else's story that they were told about themselves. Please treat that with a massive history change and everything after that. Breathing and noticing. And superconsciousness, when ready, begin the closing procedure. Everything that we have touched today to be anchored in memories 1, 2, and 3, tandem memories, shadow memories, ego states, and ground all of it into the matrix of the universe. And then take a moment to focus on how do you feel different in comparison to when you started the session. Again, you can use the 0 to 10. Have you moved up some? Do you feel a little lighter? And take a moment to congratulate yourself for finishing all 12 chapters. And for many, they think that this is the end of the journey with the ebook. And really, it's just the beginning. Now that you've gone all the way through all 12 audios, you can go back and reuse your favorite ones. Or every couple months, actually start over and redo all 12 audios again, picking new areas you want to work on. And continue using the audios until you get your final result that you're after. And for those who want to explore deeper, you can also go into my advanced course where there are even more audios. We go even deeper into trauma responses. We go into reading social cues and enjoy. How is that final audio for you? And again, I want to congratulate you for finishing the series. And I know at the end of the audio, it kind of plugs my advanced class. And again, I'm not selling you anything. I'm not asking you to go buy that class. So if you are patient enough, eventually I will be able to get that course in an audio or not audio, video series just like this one. This ebook course that we just completed is kind of the mini session of it. And then I have a more advanced one. And eventually I will get that one up also on the YouTube channel. But it's probably going to take me a little bit. And again, congratulate yourself. Leave me some comments on how the series has been for you, if there's been any big aha moments. And of course, most importantly, anything that hasn't shifted, I want to know about that too, so we can also make some content around it. And I thank you so much for completing the series, and make sure you give yourself some love and some gratitude for working towards your heart's desires.